Shawn Salle, welcome to the Stephen Skinner podcast.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, there's two names when I look up your business name, Brown Carbonic, and then we're also going to talk about Challenger Cola. But coming from a person that's a third generation business owner, our family had Sacred Melody since 1957, and knowing that you are third generation, right, in your company?
Yep.
Who's still involved now and was Brown Carbonic the original name? Or did it go different?
Brown Carbonic's been around since 1956, but my family hasn't owned it that long. So,
So either was it your grandfather that bought that out or took that over?
yeah. So my grandparents actually started down in Elmira, Troy, PA area, and so what they did is I don't know how my grandfather's just a genius, but he really started working on everything in a restaurant. Fryers, ovens. Anything you could find or needed work, he got called on to work on it. So anything that could pay the bills, really. And then he got approached by Coca-Cola way back, and they're like, "Hey, you can fix an oven. Can you fix a soda system?" He's like, "Sure, why not?" So he started doing that, and then that turned into them actually distributing Coca-Cola. So, I guess 50, 60 years ago now,
wow,
they were selling Coca-Cola products, trailer loads of Coca-Cola products down in Elmira. And they lived the struggle. It was
I'm sure.
Back then there was distributors across Central New York. So right now, you just have Coca-Cola as the only distributor. But back then, there was probably 5 in Syracuse, just Syracuse alone. So they lived the struggle. They did well, and they ended up growing. And over the years, they ended up buying out Brown Carbonic. So Brown Carbonic is actually started in Syracuse by a gentleman named Fred Brown. So I get asked all the time, like, "Hey, are you Shawn Brown?" I'm like, "No." And then again, I get in the story of where the Brown comes from. So,
and Brown Carbonic is it like H2O type stuff and all the other things that go in with making product? What is what's behind Brown Carbonic?
So Brown comes from the gentleman's name, Fred Brown.
Yeah.
Carbonic is just like the industry for beverage systems, CO2 systems, nitrogen, that sort of side. And that's the carbonic. That's what that kind of.
And was that always right here, Brown Carbonic? Was that always in the Syracuse end, or was it down in the Elmira end, but where your grandfather was?
So Brown Carbonic was a small company in Syracuse, and so they bought out Brown Carbonic. I don't know, sometime in the 70s, sometime in that area, and then they bought out a couple other companies, one in Utica called Sunset Carbonic, and up until about 6 years ago, we were still trading as Sunset Carbonic. Kind of get a little bit deeper, but we actually had like 6 or 7 different names. Wow. So they traded as W.E. Salle, my grandfather's name, in Elmira.
Yeah.
Because that's where they started. They had MC Carbonic, which was down in Binghamton. They had Brown Carbonic in Syracuse, Sunset Carbonic in Utica, Remco Carbonic was in Syracuse. So there's all these names.
So you guys were like in this beverage industry. So he left the whole like fryer servicing end of that thing, and he got into full-fledged. You're doing everything for helping what? Draft beer, soda, everything like that?
Yeah, so we there was a point when he bought out Sunset Carbonic.
Yeah.
He said, "All right, enough with Coke," and buying out Sunset Carbonic had it was an old 7-Up facility. So it came with a whole batch tanks and production, sugar tanks and all that kind of stuff. So he got rid of Coca-Cola, and at that point, he started making all of our own flavors. So our Challenger Cola, our Diet, our 7-Up, root beer, cranberry juice, and those were kind of like the mains at that time that they made. But that was kind of the core of the business, the restaurant. So
that's who you went right from there. Now, from there, I think you guys are over in the East Syracuse, Malloy area. Mm-hmm. And so how many people you guys employ now? Do you guys employ a few people, or is it?
Yeah, so we had a location in Mattydale. It was like, I don't know, 50 by 75, small building. And I remember back in the day, like, I remember there was tarps up on the wall. The back of it was just dirt. And I remember it was just like the oldest warehouse you could think of. That's what it was like. But then we moved to this building in East Syracuse, right off Carrier Circle, and it came with 4 delivery docks, and it's about 5 times the size of it, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is huge.
That's awesome.
But now we employ around 25 to 30 employees.
That's amazing here. And now, and how many places do you distribute to? I mean, do you have, you have what, you have dozens, hundreds of people, and is it just Syracuse area, or you even go? Are you still going out to Utica? Are you still going to other areas?
So we decided to close the Utica location just because it's 40 minutes down the road.
Unnecessary,
So we consolidated that. We still have a location that operates in Elmira, and I always say that we operate about 120 mile radius from Syracuse.
That's a good.
It's a lot of green.
When did you now? So you're third generation. Is everyone still living, or is there people that have either gone and passed, and then now it's passed down to you? I mean, is everyone still there?
So my grandparents started it, and at one point, I have 4. My dad plus 3 uncles, and my aunt. At one point, they were all involved.
Oh my goodness.
And over the years, I had uncles that had moved on, but there was my dad and 2 uncles that really kind of managed it for most of it. One uncle retired. The uncle in Elmira retired, I don't know, around 2012 or something like that. And then the uncle out in Utica retired about 2 years ago, a year ago, or something like that. And now my dad and mom run and own the business.
Yeah. Okay. So and how long now have you been involved with the company?
So I get to ask all the time.
Because isn't it like really childhood? It's like, yeah. I know.
know,
I used to come in with my dad at like 7 or 8 years old. And like, did I start then? Did I start when I was New York State legal age of 14? Or so all your life you've been there, right?
Yeah. I always say as long as I was useful, my dad had me helping out.
Yeah. So, but was there a point of even over the last 10 years, you're like, I'm all in. This is what I love doing this. Was there a spot where you say like, I enjoy this? Because as a kid, sometimes your parents are cool, then your parents are not cool, and then they're cool again. Was there a moment like that?
Well, there's a moment of like, I can work here. So I was like 15, 16, I would work after school or whatnot. And like, I'd make, I don't know, $20 and I'm like, all right, I can do this. But if I didn't want to work, I could not work. It was that kind of like loose at that time. But I graduated school. I was still working there like during summer times and whatnot. But I went to college and I went to Cortland and Syracuse or OCC for a little bit. And I kind of spaced out a little bit. I wasn't full time or anything like that. But I was still, somewhat involved. Or like spring breaks, I was coming back for working. But, I went to Disney World for 6 months or 4 months and I worked an internship down there. So I definitely had kind of gone different paths.
Yeah.
After that ended, I came back and I started. And there was this point after like 2 or 3 years, I was working. I was in the trenches doing delivery, service work, and whatnot. I was like, what am I doing? Am I going to do this for the rest of my life, or am I going to do something else? And it took me a while because I really needed to make that judgment or that decision.
Yeah, decision.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And it took me a while to kind of make a good decision. And I came up with, my grandparents put everything they could in. My dad and uncles, they put everything they could in. And now I have this company that is, headed my direction. And I'm like, this really, really good company from where it started. It's such an opportunity to keep it going, where I could be starting ground zero doing something else.
No, absolutely. Now, let's shift to talk about Challenger Cola, because that's the flavor brand. Is that your name of? Because I know Jackie, which again most people know that I own the Palace Theater, and Jackie this morning said, "Tell Shawn they have the best root beer on the planet." She's like, all our customers love it, our staff love it. So she wanted to give you a shout out on that at the Palace Theater, because we use Brown Carbonic and we use all your flavors there at Challenger Cola. But yeah, tell me why the name. And then again, I would just love to again talk about the fact, like, how do you compete with? Because you're competing with, in essence, with the big boys too, of Coke and Pepsi. So talk a little bit about Challenger Cola.
So for a long time, our product was a mixer. The old companies back in the day, they were in the corner bars and it was used as a mixer, which is fine. That was the companies back then. But over the years, we wanted to show the appreciation for the product and show that it is a really good quality product. And so we had to brand it. For the longest time, we didn't have a name for it. It was just cola. Up until about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, we're like, let's brand it. Let's get it recognizable so that if you're in Syracuse or Utica and you see that,
You know it.
you recognize it. And I mean, it's simple branding.
It's awesome though.
And so the name came from, really my father and I just like sitting down day after day, like trying to come up with something. And I forget how exactly we came with it, but he's like, take the challenge, with Challenger Cola, and can you take the challenge of finding success with it? And it just stuck.
I love it, especially when you think of the big guys. You're challenging the big guys, which is awesome. So again, this is people who take on your products. They either get it at a bar or off of tap or some sort like that, right? And then they have it. Now, does all the other flavors, is it all go under the name of Challenger Cola, or do you have names for all the flavors? Or
so it's the kind of Challenger line. In appreciation for my grandfather, we actually do Warner's Birch Beer. It was kind of like his favorite.
Yep.
So if you ever been to Hyde's.
Yep, absolutely.
Hyde's
It has the birch beer.
Oh yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So is that all part of what you guys do with the birch beer too? Is it the same recipe, or how did he even create these recipes? You guys in there, working on it?
I can't tell you that.
No, you'd have to kill me. No, that's awesome. But I'm saying these are your family stuff, right?
Yeah.
You guys put the work into it. It's not like you just order something online. No, this is your brand. This is your brand and your thing. It would just, again, this is the hub now. It's in Syracuse, in DeWitt here. What are some of the challenges that you face now in, again, this crazy market we are in business now and in central New York there? What are some of the things you've been facing over the last couple of years?
Well, everyone has the same kind of general challenges, whether it's labor, prices, raw ingredients. Everyone has a labor, so I'm not going to dig into that because everyone has their
the same thing
flavor
going on there.
of labor issues. But some of the challenges in the industry are, we don't have the biggest pockets. We compete with companies that have some of the biggest pockets. So we have to outperform. We have to provide better service, something that the big companies can't do or don't see. The small local companies,
correct,
that they just don't care about. That's where we come in and we can show, the service makes up for it.
No, that's awesome. And again, you service probably a lot of your equipment. I know in the past, our staff have called you guys and be like, hey, we need help with something here. It's, making sure the mix is right and things like that. So you guys, again, have either train people to help service the equipment and things of that nature, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we have, between our 25 to 30 employees, we have, 4 guys that do service. We have our production team, we have our warehouse team, we have our drivers, we have our office staff.
No, that's, it has to be quite an operation too. If you're expanding over 100 miles reach for people there. Now, do you guys have a website where people can find out? Because I think when people go to, if people came to the Palace Theater and they didn't ask, they may not know that we serve Brown Carbonic Challenger Cola products. Do you even have a website where they allow you to put the logos of the different restaurants and names that you guys, so people can be like, hey, I want to get that root beer. I want that famous root beer.
Not yet. It's a great idea.
So, I'm just thinking that the fact that, our staff know to tell people, because people are like, what type is this? She says we get asked, like, is this Saranac? And she said people have said, IBC's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
She's like, it's from Brown Carbonic. She's like, people love it, and they'll come to the Palace just because of the root beer we have. So, obviously, you got to keep those ingredients quite close to the vest there on that. But is there an ebb and flow when it comes to business being busier? Do you see business in the beverage industry being busier in the winter times because of holiday parties versus summer? Do you have a type of thing, or is it pretty much just because people are drinking soda and beer? Is it sort of just steady?
It definitely is seasonal. In the summertime, just lemonade, for example, it's probably 5 times more in the summertime than in the wintertime. So sales definitely increase, whether it's your seasonal places that open up outside. Whether it's marinas and stuff like that, where it's, they got 4 months of the year. But it's definitely seasonal. That, we're coming up on our slow season. It's kind of already hit. I always say Memorial Day to Labor Day is peak season.
Gotcha.
And then it just kind of
because of all the outdoors, all the parties, everything that people are doing on that. Is there the spot that you say, I love this part, just like I think in almost in any business, there's parts that we have to endure because it's just life and this is all part of it. What makes Shawn tick? What makes you come to work and be like, I love this part of it? Is there something special in that or no?
Yeah, so I love going to all of our new customers. We get calls for new customers all the time, and I try to make it a point to go to and meet every one of them as reasonable as I can, whether it's new breweries, new restaurants. Let's see, what are some other ones? So we handle a lot of ice, so like new gas stations, that sort of stuff. So I love going and meeting new customers because it's all small. Most of it is all small business, so everyone has their own story.
It's awesome.
That's probably my favorite part is you learn something new about some family that's been running a restaurant or someone who's just started their 3-barrel brewery and now they're going to a 15-barrel. That's the best part.
See, and that's one of the reasons why, I mean, I love hearing your story, because someone would just think, oh, just any ordinary name, but there's something behind every name. There's a story of a family, in your case, 3 generations of people who put blood, sweat, and tears in. And I mean, just the stories that your father could share, your grandfather would share, I mean, things of that nature. So it's nice that it's not only through those generations coming to you, but on top of that, now you're passing on those stories. And so I think it gives people listening to this or watching this just an appreciation for Brown Carbonic products, Challenger Cola. You watch, we're gonna have some people are gonna literally ask people like, "Do you carry Challenger?" I don't even know if every staff even knows sometimes the stuff they're serving, but they're gonna start getting asked that question. So no, that's again, I mean, that's just awesome. I just now I wish you the absolute best going forward here, and I think that in every small business it is definitely challenging. You have to love it for the people, and you have your heart in the right place, because again, it's not always about the money, because the money won't always be there. So it's the stories that we share, and it's the people that we meet. So again, just want to thank you so much for coming on the Stephen Skinner podcast, man. All right,
appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, Shawn.